So are the urgent care centers, the members of your association, now in a position, most of them, and I think there are roughly 3,000 members, correct? Are they now in a,
There's probably about 4,500, but
um, uh, I stand corrected, 4,500. Are most of them now in a position where they can offer COVID-19 testing?
yes,
Um,
yes.
and is there a particular, um, is there any uniformity in terms of the type of test or the vendor that is working with your group in terms of COVID testing?
Um, there are, the very first rapid tests that came out, um, piloted with several of the larger urgent care organizations. And so, um, but the two rapid tests we really hoped would have a lot of penetration into urgent care. It got tricky around the reimbursement. They tests are expensive, and urgent care runs on pretty thin margins already. And so for us to, what we also found, unfortunately, is because there's a limited supply of tests and there are a lot of people who want them, there's price fluctuation going on there. And so if you've got a small center who's ready to go, but he has a minimum order of $90,000 or something to even get in the list, that's not going to happen. And so I think a lot of them, I think most of them are testing, but for the most part, they are taking a sample and sending it out to a lab versus doing that. And we all know that there are limit, there's a time issue there that is not helping control the spread. So I think they are ready and able. There are just some issues to work out from a supply and demand standpoint, as well as how much the test costs and ultimately who's paying for it, which is still kind of murky. So yes, the vast majority of them are testing, however. That's what we do. I mean, what are you going to do? Shut the door and not be who we are? So.
And let's just talk a little bit about the murkiness of payment. A lot of payers say that, oh, we're covering the cost of testing, but you seem to suggest maybe it's not quite as straightforward as that when people go into an urgent care center. What happens?
It hasn't been. Right now, I don't know that the coding of how to set that up as far as exactly what you were able to bill, depending on what kind of test you were doing. Are you doing the rapid test? Are you doing, disease test? Are you testing for antibodies? All those kinds of things. It took a while for any guidance to come out, and there hasn't been any real federal mandate to the payers. And so each of them are sort of handling it as they see fit. And I don't know anyone who's actually gotten paid yet. And so we are billing on hope that it's going to kind of work out, because everybody says it's going to kind of work out. We're committed to being part of the solution, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know that there has been a tremendous amount of clarity around that. I don't know at the beginning, some things got denied because the payers weren't ready at all. And so there's a little bit of once bitten, twice shy there. I think of, okay, we'll send this in again and cross our fingers. And so, it's kind of a scary place to be, especially for I was about to say for a small business owner, for any business owner. And so that really is sort of, because there's not a guarantee laid on top of that, federally or otherwise. I think that's really all it is a little bit of level of distrust that it's all just going to work out.
So it seems like that your members might be experiencing a fair amount of financial distress. They didn't have patients to see in the early part of the epidemic. Everybody sort of stayed home and hunkered down. As they start to open up and begin to test people, the payment mechanism to them is murky and has a certain amount of uncertainty in terms of the final outcome. So are your members hurting financially for these two reasons and maybe some others?
Um, it's going to vary from company to company. Obviously, I know that their volumes since I believe it started in June have been at record volumes for any time of the year. Summer is typically our slow season, so we're prepared for summer to be a little bit slower. That has not been the case, and it's thankfully. I mean, this was one of the other issues we saw. We're not seeing nothing but COVID. People are starting to come in again when they twist their ankle and when they cut themselves and all of the other things that we do. And so I think it feels like urgent care is back not just to normal levels. We're back to normal levels for the summer for regular urgent care with COVID on top of that. So there seems to have been a significant recovery to offset those 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm not getting the sense of, oh my gosh, we're still going to have to close our doors. That is how everybody felt the first week of April of, is anybody ever going to come back again? And I'm not hearing that. And I think it's urgent care lives on volume because, as I said, we're relatively narrow margin. And so as long as the supply chain can continue, I'm not hearing oh, we're in financial straits. I think there's concern about the flu season coming up. That's really where the current concerns are, is how are those tests going to be coupled together, and what's the cost for that going to look like, and what's the supply going to look like, and do we need to staff up because we're going to be able to participate in that, or do we need to stay a little hold back a little bit because we might not be part of that distribution, and same with the vaccine. So I think it's more around operational concerns than financial concerns at this point.
So in terms of flu, is the thinking that there will be some testing that will combine an assessment whether somebody has the flu and or COVID? And what is the status of those tests? And this time around, will your members be at the front of the line in terms of access to those tests? Maybe not a rapid test right there at the facility, but the ability to collect a sample and send it off.
Yeah, we have a sort of sister association, the College of Urgent Care Medicine, and this is all that they're talking about. We had our third town hall on this yesterday, where right now, as we look at, and I am not a clinician, so I'm going to do the best I can on this one. Right now, as we're looking at that season, because we don't know what tests will be approved, it is much more of a rule out situation of ruling out flu and ruling out strep to say, okay, we know it's not those, it might be COVID, let's move in that direction. There's such a danger of assuming that it's COVID and not treating the other things that we also know can kill you, that they're really having to, there's a lot of clinical discussion going on right now, regardless of what the test scenario looks like. But what there's a 4-in-1 combination test that everybody's pretty excited about, that can, in theory, tell you of those things which is which. And so, because the symptoms are so similar, and that's really where I think that our clinicians are focusing, is how do we pick this needle out of a needle stack, and ensure that we're diagnosing and treating the right thing, because we're so used to treating strep and flu. That's normal for us that time of year.
4-in-1 or 3-in-1?
It's 4-in-1. The other one is RSV, and I am not great at remembering what that stands for.
Right.
Another upper respiratory infection. Yeah.
And I assume that dealing with flu or possible flu has been a main line of activity for your members in urgent care centers.
Traditionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's just quickly discuss, maybe not so quickly, the role of the urgent care centers in terms of a vaccine. Mm-hmm. Of course, we don't know when one is going to be available. There's some hope that perhaps at the end of 2020 or early 2021. And of course, there's a big issue about who will get it first, perhaps healthcare workers. but is the association, our urgent care centers, vying to become one of the places where people can get a COVID-19 vaccine?
In general, yes. I mean, that's the short answer. That's the work that we've been doing, is at least give us the opportunity to be part of that. Um, we are part of the flu immunization protocols and have been forever. So we have even put tents in our parking lots at times, when it's high season for that. And so, we are staffed and ready to do that. I think um, I'm going to make a guess here that the level of participation will really depend on what else is in the community, and are they seeing so much prevalence of disease that they're treating that they're already full and just don't have the added capacity there's no one to stand there to give the shot. And so I think that there will be some level of determination that they're going to have to make. But in general, yes, we want to be part of that solution.